Ahoy hoy fellow bookworms, my name is Caroline and I like to read books, so let's talk about them. Today's video is going to be my February wrap up. I read 8 books this month, which I'm really proud of, and I'm excited to share my thoughts with you guys, so let's just jump straight in. The first book is one that I was meant to finish in January, but ended up finishing on the 2nd of February, or something equally annoying, and it's Kafka on the Shore by Haruki Murakami. For a lot of people, this is their favorite Murakami book, and after finishing it, I can definitely see why. This book follows our two main characters, Kafka and Akata, who are both searching for something and whose stories kind of unfold parallel to one another. As with a lot of Murakami's other works, this book is centered on the theme of isolation and also falls into the genre of magical realism. I think what I enjoyed the most about this book is how Murakami's writing somehow manages to make the bizarre feel incredibly real. This story is odd, but also it came off as incredibly magical and dreamlike, and I was just completely swept up by it. Next up, I read Histories or You Left Me by Adam Silvera, and as much as I hate to use this cliche, this book was like a roller coaster of emotions where at the end I was just sobbing uncontrollably because it was over. I loved this book though, and I have done a full spoiler-free review of it, so I'm just gonna leave the link for it so you guys can check it out. After that, I read volume 6 of Saga by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples, and I am just so completely in love with this volume. It went in a direction that I was really happy with. It's honestly one of my favorites of the series, even though there was some slow moments in it. I just didn't even care because the good moments were so good, and reading this just made me so much more excited for volume 7, which I think comes out in March, and I just can't wait. The next book I read in February is The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis, which is an absolutely amazing book about rape culture and how our 3 main characters are affected by it. This is another book that I've done a full spoiler-free review on, so I'm just gonna leave the link to that in case you guys are interested. Next up, I read The Bands of Mourning by Brandon Sanderson, which is the 6th book in the Mistborn world, and I just loved this so much. This book is probably my favorite of the Wax and Wayne series. The main thing that I love about it is the characters. There are a lot of moments in this book where all our main characters are together, and the ways that they interact are so incredibly funny. It is seriously like a sitcom, and I love every moment of it because they are so funny. I was pissing myself reading this book, and I just love the characters. Also, the entire last third of this book was completely fucking crazy. There is so much stuff that happens, new things are introduced, the characters are in danger, there's drama, there's action, and I was just so on the edge of my seat the entire time. I was incredibly anxious and kind of freaking out and almost nervous crying, but I loved every moment of it, and I can't wait for the next book in this series, even though it kind of scares me that there's only one more book in this series when it feels like there's so much stuff still to be wrapped up. But honestly, this was just a great book to read. After that, I read books 4 and 5 in the Y the Last Man comic series by Brian K. Vaughan. Book 4 was probably one of my favorites of the series. I think it had a really excellent mix of humor and action, and there were a lot of new developments in the story. Book 5 is the finale to the series, and although I definitely enjoyed it, I found it to be not quite as satisfying as I'd hoped. I think the story was a little disjointed at times, and the ending was kind of sudden for my liking, but overall, this is still a really excellent series that I'm kind of sad I've now finished. The final book that I read in February is what I talk about when I talk about running by Haruki Murakami, which is a non-fiction work of his all about his passion for running marathons. I did enjoy this book, but overall I found myself a little disappointed by it. What I always love about a Murakami book is how smooth his writing is. It has a really elegant flow to it, but then this book I found a little disjointed. It was like his thought process was a bit all over the place, it jumped around, and it was just kind of confusing and not my favorite thing. There were some really great observations about running and writing in this that I enjoyed, but it's definitely not my favorite Murakami book. There we go, those are all the books that I read this month. Be sure to let me know down in the comments what your favorite book that you read in February was, because I'm really interested to know. I upload videos Wednesdays, Saturdays, and sometimes Mondays as well, so be sure to like this one and subscribe to my channel, and stay tuned on those days for more bookish goodness. Toodaloo!